This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, yeah, it is 94. Shall we start? Good morning, all. Hope you are all staying safe. Okay. Uh, okay. Somebody say go, then we'll start. Hello. 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 Shall we start?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is more practical, and actually this needs more imagination than a normal theoretical class. Actually, just I want you to be more alert because. This needs a lot of assumptions. You need to think over your head the 3D image and all the things. Okay, this will be regarding cyanotic heart diseases in children, and we'll be discussing one of them, like the tetralogy of Fallot, and which is the most common. Okay, so somebody has left already. Okay, uh, yeah, shall we start? Cyanotic heart disease. Okay, the introduction, cyanosis. Yeah, like everything, which like most of the things has come from Greek, koinios, and which means dark blue color. So cyano, and it is dark blue, and it is the persistence of cyanosis beyond 2 hours is unusual. Okay, I think you all know what is cyanosis, right? How the cyanosis looks. Okay, there is central cyanosis, there is peripheral cyanosis. Central cyanosis is, as the name suggests, it is in the central part of the body, like your tongue, tip of the nose, oral cavity. Okay, these specifies the central cyanosis, and your peripheral cyanosis is your hands, toes. Okay, these are the peripheral cyanosis. Okay, and yeah, persistence. Usually, the newborn is expected to have some cyanosis because newborn comes from a relatively a higher temperature of 37, 36 degrees centigrade into the normal room temperature of 20, 27, 28. So obviously, we are expecting a baby to be under cold stress. Okay, and also the fetal circulation gets switched to the normal adult circulation. So that is mixing of blood and the sats are not so high at the time of birth. So you are expecting cyanosis, and that expectation should last for less than two hours of life. Okay? If it is beyond 2 hours of life, we should attend to the baby, like whether it really the cyanosis because of mixing of blood and persistence of the fetal circulation, or is it uh, from the hypothermia around, or some other cause that is externally being influenced. Okay, in regarding hypothermia, mostly it is the peripheral cyanosis because the body wants to keep the core temperature normal, so it will pull all the blood into the center of the body, and all the mechanisms that goes the organs will get a lot of blood, so the peripheries will be compromised, and so they turn blue. Okay, that is what central and peripheral cyanosis, because we'll start from cyanosis, then go to heart disease, then go to top. Okay, yeah, cyanosis is bluish or purplish tinge in the to the skin and mucous membrane, yeah, as we discussed, and approximately 5 grams of deciliter of unoxygenated, I think you must be knowing it in the physiology, this is basic physiology. Okay, it is the unoxygenated hemoglobin for 5 gram per deciliter. Okay, more than 5 grams per deciliter. But the thing is, nowadays the researchers and the new articles, they say that it is not 5, it can be 3 also. Okay, but whatever it is, whatever the book says, we have to go with it is 5 grams per deciliter. And cyanosis is recognized at a higher level of oxygen saturation in patients with polycythemia and at a lower level with anemia. That is logical, right? In anemia, already the hemoglobin is less. See, say somebody is having the 7 hemoglobin, and of that 7, 5 grams should be deoxygenated blood to produce uh, cyanosis. So obviously there will be lower oxygen saturation, right? And if somebody is like you and I, mostly we will be having around 14 to 15 HB, and if we lose 5 grams of uh, 5 grams of blood for cyanosis, I mean deoxygenated blood, we may not have that much of a change in the oxygen saturation. Okay, this is quite logical because there is 10 more grams to look after the oxygen sats. Okay, so that's the logic. Okay, just remember, in anemia, it is very hard to find cyanosis. The saturation will be really low. Okay, yeah, I think I'm going a bit fast. Okay, uh, types of cyanosis. Yeah, as we discussed, central cyanosis, peripheral cyanosis. Central cyanosis is should you should always think about cyanotic heart disease. And peripheral cyanosis, as we discussed, it is hypothermia or any congestive failure. Congestive failure is also the same mechanism, like the body wants to keep its blood and its supply to the core of the body. Okay, that is how your peripheral cyanosis is. And mixed cyanosis can happen. Everything. This is also in congenital heart diseases where there can be central cyanosis along with shock. Shock produces peripheral cyanosis. So if there is a heart disease and also shock, that will give you mixed cyanosis. Like the center is also, I mean, the oral cavity. I will make it oral cavity, okay? Because that should imprint on you. The oral cavity, that means the tongue and mucosa of the oral cavity is central cyanosis. And the peripheries, your tips of fingers, are peripheral cyanosis. Okay? And differential cyanosis, these are all just of academic interest. Differential cyanosis, PDA with reversal will have differential cyanosis, the upper limb and lower limb. Only the one of the pair will be having cyanosis, sorry. And reverse differential cyanosis, this happens in case of transposition of great arteries with the PDA with reversal. With PDA with reversal will have differential cyanosis, and with the TGA will cause reverse differential, like the lower limbs only will be cyanosed or the upper limbs only will be cyanosed. Okay, and intermittent cyanosis will be seen in Epstein's anomaly. Okay, and the cyclical cyanosis in bilateral choanal atresia. When newborn, if there is bilateral choanal atresia, you are ENT and ophthalm going, right? Yeah, no, you're not ENT and ophthalm going. Yeah, you are ENT and ophthalm going. Okay, bilateral choanal atresia. So the back of the nose, the choana will be blocked. So if it is a cartilaginous block, there is two things: the bony or the soft tissue block. If it is a soft tissue block, maybe the air is being passed sometimes and may not allow it all the times. So there will be cyclical cyanosis. Okay. If it is a bony thing, there is no point. The baby cannot breathe and maintain through oral breathing. So obviously the baby will be cyanosed. Okay, these are of some importance. Okay, just because in practicals, some examiner may ask you where can you find cyclical cyanosis, where can you find intermittent cyanosis. Okay, these are all for that importance. Okay, and now come on, how to differentiate whether it is cyanosis or whether it is something else that is giving a bluish color. Okay, there is true cyanosis and the cyanosis-like conditions. You know how to identify whether it is absolutely a true cyanosis is when it is usually associated with clubbing. Okay, we can't expect this in a newborn actually clubbing, but I'm talking about in a elder child or in a bigger or more after 5 years or something. You can always find clubbing. Okay, clubbing, you must be knowing that this is the clubbing of the fingers. Okay, if it is there and also cyanosis and also blue color, maybe we can think that okay, maybe this is cyanosis along with clubbing, and your ABG will confirm it because your oxygenation will be your arterial blood will be deoxygenated mostly. So that is how you confirm that yes, it is cyanosis. The blue color is cyanosis. Okay, and few things like which are cyanosis like condition, there will be blue colored peripheries or the central, but there is no deoxygenated as such deoxygenated problem. Like if it is not associated with clubbing, there is no clubbing, and even then there is blue color. So we may think that maybe this is something else, may not be cyanosis. Okay, and lab estimation usually shows methemoglobin or sulfa hemoglobin. Okay, yeah, differential diagnosis. In other words, it is differential diagnosis: methemoglobin, sulfa hemoglobin, and pseudocyanosis. Okay, this is something called pseudocyanosis. Is blue color to the skin or mucous membrane that is not associated with either hypoxia or peripheral vasoconstriction. Okay, usually it is caused by metals, heavy metal like silver iodide, silver lead, and few drugs like chloroquine Okay, and phenothiazides. These can produce blue color, but it is not associated with any hypoxemia. When you take the ABG, there won't be any PaO2 decrease. Okay, that hypoxia. Okay, that won't be there. Okay, that is how you differentiate whether it is absolute cyanosis or not cyanosis. And yeah, you may have a doubt. Your SpO2, your monitor, the pulse oximeter may show normal numbers, and still there can be blue color. Okay, in these conditions, methemoglobin and sulfur hemoglobin. And now we are dealt with cyanosis. We know what is cyanosis. There is blue colored baby, and there is clubbing, and so the baby is presently. Then you should think of, yes, maybe we are dealing with a congenital heart disease. Okay, why congenital is because it is an anatomical defect, so obviously it has to be present from birth. Okay, the congenital heart disease. Okay, now this classification is very important, and this is also important for your viva. And like, when you get a case of CVS, they're definitely going to ask you this. Broadly classify how this cyanotic heart diseases. Like, they're classified into increased blood flow, increased pulmonary blood flow, and decreased pulmonary blood flow. Okay, there are few conditions, 4 or 5, and here 4 or 5. At least you say two, the examiner will be satisfied. Okay. Now coming to the increased pulmonary blood flow, there is cyanosis, there is clubbing, and polycythemia. See, why there is polycythemia is the circulation is doing deoxygenated blood, so the body senses like it needs more hemoglobin to transfer the oxygen, whichever what is available. So the bone marrow gets stimulated, and it will start producing more of RBCs, and that will eventually result in polycythemia. As it is a congenital condition, it will be a like continuous process. Like it has to from birth, it will sense that yes, there is deoxygenated blood. So bone marrow, you go and give more blood to the body so that you can transport whatever oxygen that is left in the body. So it will be continuously producing RBCs. So that will give you a polycythemia. Okay, everything goes hand in hand: cyanosis, clubbing, and polycythemia. Okay, yeah. Coming to the conditions, this is important. Just mind this. A few slides are very important in examination perspective, and also definitely in clinical perspective. Okay, yeah. Increase the pulmonary blood flow. These are seen in transposition of great arteries. The transposition, as the name suggests, transposition of great arteries. What are the great arteries? Your aorta and pulmonary artery are the great arteries, and they will switch their position. Your pulmonary artery comes from left, and your aorta comes from the right. So obviously, you know that something is messed up, right? So so most of the blood goes to the lungs. Actually, the systemic circulation goes to the lungs, and the blood that has to go to the lungs will go to the systemic circulation. So obviously, there is increased pulmonary blood flow. Okay, and the other condition is truncus arteriosus, which is very similar. Truncus arteriosus is something like there is the same thing, the primitive of aorta and pulmonary artery. And single ventricle. Okay, there is only one ventricle. There is no left and right. There is large amount of blood, and that starts pushing into both the systemic and pulmonary. So obviously, pulmonary gets relatively more blood than the systemic circulation. And TAPVC, that is total anomalous pulmonary venous circulation, and HLHS is hypoplastic left heart syndrome. Okay, by instance, TGA is more common in case of increased pulmonary blood flow. Okay, just this is of importance. You just say TGA, truncus arteriosus, single ventricle. Okay, the examiner will be very happy. Okay, now coming to the decreased pulmonary blood flow, the most common being tetralogy of Fallot and tricuspid atresia, abstinence anomaly, and pulmonary atresia. Okay, as the name suggests, actually decrease the pulmonary blood flow. See, the blood is not going to the lung. So what gives the blood to the lungs is your pulmonary artery. So there is something blocked, obstructed, not formed, whatever it is, the pulmonary artery is not having blood. You think of the condition. You need not confuse over the things. You think of the condition. Tetralogy of Fallot, where one of the component is pulmonary stenosis. In tricuspid atresia, there is less blood to the right heart, so obviously there is less blood to the pulmonary artery. Abstinence anomaly is also practically less blood, tricuspid atresia. And pulmonary atresia is as such, the pulmonary artery is narrow. Okay, all these conditions will decrease blood flow. Okay, don't try to remember, get the logic, because in your entrance there will be definitely going to be multiple options, so you can pick up. Okay. Yeah, now coming to the star of the day, tetralogy of Fallow. Okay, it is pronounced as Fallow. Okay, those scientists' name who has worked on it. Okay, this is of some historical importance. In 1888, Fallow described the anatomy. Actually, in 1670s only, there is Niels Stephen, as I remember, has described the defect actually in 16th century only. Okay, but he didn't mention it or publish it. But in 1888, Fallow, he did mention this into the literature, so obviously it has become known to be tetralogy of Fallow. Okay. Yeah, incidence is 10% of all. Yeah, as we discussed in the numbers, 5 to 7. It is almost 10% of congenital heart diseases. Okay, this is actually relatively more common. Actually, cyanotic heart disease, you just name it, and mostly it will be correct. Okay, and the most common cardiac malformation after 1 year of age. If you are seeing it, mostly cyanosis after 1 year of age. Just to think that it is tetralogy of Fallow. Okay. Yeah, coming to the components. Okay, here I would like to tell you something. There is something called physiology of Fallow and tetralogy of Fallow. Okay, examiner will be interested in asking such questions. Okay, tetralogy of Fallow, as the name suggests, tetra, 4. Okay, there are 4 components. Okay, and something called Fallow's physiology. Okay, Fallow's physiology means the two components. Okay, the two components are, there should be a VSD and there should be pulmonary stenosis. Okay, just remember, only two components. There should be a pulmonary stenosis and there should be VSD. If any condition having these two, that means it is having a physiology of Fallow. That means whatever the hemodynamical status the heart is having, I know it is very difficult. Cardiology is very difficult to not to have a one-to-one, not to have. This is very difficult to explain you, and I don't know how much you are getting it, but I'll try my best. Yeah, physiology means, just remember, Fallow's physiology means there should be two components. There should be VSD, there should be pulmonary stenosis. If at all there is pulmonary stenosis and VSD, that satisfies the definition of Fallow's physiology. But to be called as a tetralogy of Fallow, there should be 4 components. That is 2 more components. That is overriding of aorta and right ventricular hypertrophy. Okay, these two are the tetra component. Okay, the 2 more, that is overriding of aorta and right ventricular hypertrophy. Okay, everything is based on these things. Okay, there is a VSD, there is an obstruction. So obviously when there is an obstruction, the chamber that is below, before the proximal to the obstruction, will obviously will have more load, because it has to, heart has to pump over a large resistance. So over time it will increase, and if the pointer is there, you can see there is hypertrophied right ventricle. Usually left ventricle should be a hypertrophied in case of normal hemodynamics, because it has to pump to the tip of our toe. So it has, left heart should have more muscle to do the job, and right heart is not usually not working that much, because it has lungs in its proximity, and it can just pump it at ease. Okay, so God has given a relatively lesser wall right ventricle, and the left ventricle over the time will increase. Okay, but what happens in Fallows is the pulmonary, there is pulmonary stenosis. This is pulmonary stenosis that you can see. So the right heart has to work hard to push blood into the pulmonary artery. So eventually it gets hypertrophy. Okay, and these are anatomical defects. You see the overriding of aorta, and this is an anatomical defect. During the formation of the heart, there is the heart in embryology. You must have undergone seen. Okay, you do the heart twists, turns, and bends, everything it does to become a heart. Okay, it is just two tubular things. If you can see the movies, English movies, you can see two long cylindrical balloons. They just turn, twist, and they make toys like balloon toys. It is something like that. It gets all the twisting, turning, and and then becomes a heart. This is just merely this is two tubes forming into a heart. Okay. So during that twisting and turning, there is overriding of aorta. Okay, and then there is VSD, there is pulmonary stenosis, and eventually we'll get right ventricular hypertrophy. Okay. Just remember Fallow's physiology and pathology of Fallow. Okay, the only two abnormalities are required. That is a VSD large enough to equalize pressures of both ventricles, a right ventricular flow obstruction. Yeah, that is what we are discussing, right? VSD and PS. Okay, pulmonary stenosis. That is right ventricular outlet obstruction. Okay, and right ventricular hypertrophy is secondary to right ventricular outflow tract obstruction and VSD. Yeah, this is obviously right. It has to pump blood around over a high resistance. And overriding of aorta varies. Actually, the degree of overriding of aorta do vary, like more than 50% or less than 50%. This is too much for you, but I'm just saying. If it is around 50% at all, it will be called double outlet right ventricle, not top, but we will call it as double ventricle, double outlet right ventricle, DORV. Okay, if it is less than 50% and it is varying, then we will call it as stop. Okay, and VSD is perimembranous defect. As you must be knowing that VSD is just remember that it is perimembranous, not the muscular VSD. It is perimembranous VSD with extension into the subpulmonary region, and VSD is non-restrictive and large. It is very large that there is no much pressure difference between the right and the left. Okay, this is coming to the hemodynamics. Okay, with the color illustration. What happens and what happens as such to this thing? Okay, see the red is yeah, obviously you must be knowing the red is the oxygenated good blood, and the blue is deoxygenated, and the purple gets the mixed blood. Okay, the purple is your mixed blood. Yeah, what happens? What happens is there is overriding of aorta means actually. See, first of all, there is a defect in the ventricles, between the ventricles. So this is VSD. Okay, there is defect, and sorry, yeah, there is a VSD, and there is an aorta that is which is supposed to be from the left ventricle, also gets blood from the right ventricle. Okay, also gets blood from the right ventricle. Okay. And there is this is pictorial representation of obstruction, but you just imagine that there is a obstruction here. Okay, there is pulmonary obstruction. Okay, these are the components. Okay, this over time this will become hypertrophy. Okay, right ventricle will become hypertrophy. This is the hemodynamics. The blood comes yeah, where from the blood come? Yeah, right atrium, right ventricle, then the blood can go to the pulmonary artery, can go to the left ventricle, can also go to the aorta directly. Okay, there are three possible ways because everything has given way. There is no obstruction. There is no demarcated boundaries. So it does all the job. Okay, because the VSD is very large. Okay, then once it goes to the lungs, then you'll get the good oxygenated blood from the pulmonary veins to the left atrium, then left ventricle, and there is a jet that goes to the aorta, and also which gets mixed with the deoxygenated with the right ventricle, so the blood gets cyanosed. Okay, just remember the purple color is the cyanosed, and that gets circulated through the body, and the body senses it to be deoxygenated and does all the stuff. Okay, this is just hemodynamics to understand. Yeah. Now coming to the associated anomalies, what also can be present in case of TOF, there can be right arch aortic, right-sided aortic arch. Okay, right arch which can be there because usually we'll get a left arch, left aortic arch. But in case of TOF, there can be associated right arch. As we discussed, the aorta moves towards the right side. It has to be in its limits to the left heart, but it just crosses from the left to the right. So there can be right-sided aortic arch. Okay, that is overriding of aorta. and ASD can be there, which is called pentology, and there can be PDA. Okay, then there can be left superior vena cava, and there is absent left pulmonary artery. As such, there is no pulmonary artery on the left side. There is only one pulmonary artery, and that is the right pulmonary artery can be there. And coronary artery abnormalities also can be present in along with these defects, this tetralogy. Okay, this is just associated anomalies. This is of theoretical importance. Yeah, now coming to the clinical features. Now we know the defect, we know the anatomy, we know the pathogenesis, where the things are going wrong, and we know the hemodynamics. Now we want to know how the child presents, like how somebody who is having these defects, how do they present? Yeah, cyanosis, obvious, right? Your blood is getting mixed up very bad in the left and right heart, so they'll present with cyanosis. And then there will be exercise intolerance. Why exercise intolerances? The blood is not having good amount of oxygenated blood. Okay, it is not delivering the blood which is supposed to deliver good oxygen is not going to do that effectively. So obviously there is exercise intolerance. You can't be so athletic as a normal person. And there will be growth retardation. Yes, growth retardation, because there is no proper nutrition transferring. So growth retardation and squatting episodes, the cyanotic spells, they can be there. We'll come to the cyanotic spells later on the discussion. Okay. Yeah, cyanosis, exercise intolerance, growth retardation, squatting episodes. Okay. Now coming to the history. Now how to take the history of a child who has come with such complaints. Okay. Now this is the appearance of cyanosis after neonatal period. We need to ask, because whether it is present from birth or did the mother notice it only after later. That is how we discuss, right? Only after 2 hours. If it is more than 2 hours, if the baby is blue, they'll tell that the baby is blue at the time of birth. Okay, they'll remember. And you need to ask for any history of hypoxemic spells, that is TET spells or cyanotic spells. Okay, you need to ask them, because they'll give a history, and we'll come to the discussion of does the child gets blue, and when the child is crying, where the child gets blue and wants to sit and squeeze his thighs. Okay, is he doing that? So we need to ask the history. Okay, then low birth weight or developmental delay, because the growth retardation is there, your blood is not effectively pumping, and easy fatigability. This is what your exercise intolerance is about. Okay, you need to ask the history of all these things during presentation. Yes, this is coming to the general examination. This is the presentation. You can see the purple bluish color demarcation of the tongue. Okay, this is the central cyanosis, which we have been discussing about, and this is the clubbing. You must be known, right? Medicine must have. This is clubbing, like your drumsticks. Okay, yeah, this is clubbing and cyanosis. And polycythemia, as we discussed, because of more RBC production, and tachypnea, obviously, because the blood wants to be oxygenated more. Okay, so body gets into more respiration rate so that it can oxygenate more blood that is available. Coming to the systemic examination, when the child comes with these complaints and then you ask these questions and you have seen cyanosis and clubbing, how do you examine the CDS system is? What are the findings we can expect is right ventricular tap in the left sternal border. It is because of the right ventricular hypertrophy. As we discussed, there will be right ventricular tap. You can get the good muscle that is hitting your fingers in the right ventricle. That specifies that right ventricular hypertrophy is there. Okay. Then there is systolic thrill on auscultation. Okay, that is because of your VSD. Okay, VSD is very large and it is pushing blood the right and left in whatever way it wants to. There is a very big VSD, so you will get a systolic thrill. Thrill is palpable murmur, right? You must know. Thrill is palpable murmur. Okay, this is only under palpation. Now under auscultation, there is a ejection click. Okay, which originates from the aorta, and S2 is single, and the pulmonary component is absent. S2 is supposed to be A to P2, and P2 is not there. Why P2 is not there is because your pulmonary artery is all stenosed or atretic. So there is not much blood flowing into the pulmonary artery and the valves are not closing in the pulmonary artery efficiently. So there is no P2. So whatever we hear is only A2. Okay, in case of S2. Okay, that is how that defect presents. And a loud ejection type of systolic murmur heard over, yeah, that is ejection systolic murmur. See, the ejection systolic murmur is because of the pulmonary stenosis. You just remember ejection systolic murmur is pulmonary stenosis, and hollow systolic murmur or pan-systolic murmur is due to VSD. A trained ears can find the difference between these two. Okay, this is the cardiologist's job, and yeah, that doesn't mean we can't see. We can also appreciate it, but you need to make sure that there can be. But when you put the stent on the chest, all you can hear may be hollow systolic murmur, just zzz, zzz, zzz. Okay, this is the hollow systolic murmur involving whole of the S1. Okay, but ejection systolic murmur, zzz, zzz, zzz. This is ejection systolic murmur. Ejection systolic murmur is characteristic of PS, pulmonary stenosis. But hollow systolic murmur is your VSD because the contraction of the ventricles are throughout the S1. So obviously you will have a hollow systolic murmur. Okay, this is systemic examination of TOF or cyanotic. Okay, the intensity of the murmur depends on the severity of stenosis. No, as the stenosis is more, the murmur's intensity will be more. And yeah, if in pulmonary atresia, murmur is absent or very soft because there is, for a murmur to be there should be flow of blood. Okay, obviously, right? The flow of blood through a narrowed passage will cause the murmur. When the blood is not much flowing in and out through and through, where is the point of the murmur? Okay, so when there is no murmur, don't think that it is quite normal because there is no murmur. It can be very severely atretic because there is very minimal amount of blood that is flowing into the pulmonary artery. Okay, and auscultation of the back is important because when this goes bad, the collaterals comes and they have to supply the lungs. So obviously the collaterals will be enlarged, and that enlarged collaterals will give you murmur over the back. Okay, so auscultation of the back is also important, not the mitral, tricuspid, pulmonary, aortic area, but also we need to auscultate in the back to find that whether the collaterals have been developed or not, because that again specifies the amount and degree of pulmonary atresia. Okay, because atresia, pulmonary atresia is there, so the blood is not going into the lungs. So God has made ways to send blood somehow to the lungs, so the collaterals will be developed. Yeah. Now coming to the investigation, now you have examined, you have come to a diagnosis, or you have seen these findings. Now how do you want to investigate the child? Is hematology, that is polycythemia, as we discussed, hematocrit will be more, anemia will be there because how much ever you can this production is there, because poor nutrition, poor growth, you will have, obviously you will see anemia, because anemia in this child is very bad because the bone marrow wants the production of RBC and you don't give proper nutrition and iron, so they will drop into anemia because of over usage of the resources. Once they get into anemia, see, one thing, make sure, this is another exam question. TOF will usually not go into failure. Okay, there is no failure in case of TOF. Heart will never fail unless there is super added things like anemia. Anemia itself can cause cardiac failure, so there will be failure. Otherwise, TOF will not go into failure. That is the reason why even with such an anatomical defect, they'll last for 1 year, they can last for 2 years, 3 years without any correction. Okay, because the heart doesn't fail, because there is no, the right ventricle is there overworking, but all other passages are fine. If the collaterals are developed towards the lungs, they can decently maintain the life. Okay, and yeah, echocardiography, X-ray, electrocardiography, ECGs, and angios for coronary artery abnormalities, we have to be doing it. Okay, and yeah, this is the X-ray. This is not teaching X-ray. This is a practical X-ray. I will put the there is one teaching X-ray. Teaching X-ray is very Perfect. Okay. This you can see the boot-shaped heart, which is characteristic. See, this is boot-shaped heart. Your left heart is raised above the diaphragm. Usually, the tip has to approximate to the diaphragm, but the tip is raised, specifying that it is hypertrophied. The right ventricle is pushing out. Okay, this is the boot-shaped. No, this is the boot-shaped SREs, like your Charlie Chaplin, Larry Hardy. That boots. Okay, don't think that now boots. The boots now are mostly Oxfords and Derbys, so they don't look like these, but in those days boots used to be in that shape. Okay, then there is oligemia. Oligemia is there is no blood supply to the lungs. Okay, the pulmonary vasculature is not, well, it is all black. Okay, it is not supposed to be this black. Lungs are not supposed to be this black. This is because there is pulmonary stenosis. There is no pulmonary vasculature that is putting blood into the lungs, so there is oligemic lungs. Okay, yeah. Yeah, coming to the normal size of the heart, because there is no failing of top, and the pulmonary vasculature is decreased. The concavity, yeah, this is one more thing. Yeah, concavity. Here there will be concavity because again pulmonary stenosis. Usually this area to be used to be filled with pulmonary artery. As the pulmonary artery is atretic, there is no pulmonary artery, so you will have this concavity. Okay, this scooped out. This is just like a scooped out, okay, region, and that gives your boot-shaped contour. Okay, yeah, right atrial enlargement, and this will lift it. And right aortic arch, as we discussed, the overriding of aorta. Aorta goes from left side to the right side, encroach. That will give an appearance of right side arch. Yeah, this is the teaching X-ray, and there we can happily see this. Right? This is upturned, and this is the scooping because of atretic pulmonary, and the vasculature is not as good. Only here, only now and there, very small vasculature is seen, and most of it is well aerated. Okay, decreased. Or this is called oligemic lungs. Sorry, this is the later picture. Later, it's not much important. Yeah. Yeah, coming to the ECG, just the right heart is doing most of the job. So there is the right side deviation and right ventricular hypertrophy. Just remember that. See, right side hypertrophy, your V1, V2, V3 are mostly your right side leads, chest leads. So its QRS complex will be enlarged. Okay, if your V5, V6 are QRS complex is enlarged or more, that is your left ventricular hypertrophy. If your right side hypertrophy is there, you have right side chest leads like V1, V2, V3s. Okay, and right axis deviation can be found by lead chest 1 and AVL. The negative waves in lead 1 is supposed to be a positive wave. When there is a negative wave, that is right side axis deviation. Okay, this is all a different topic. Just remember there is right axis deviation and also right ventricular hypertrophy. Just with there is right ventricular hypertrophy, the electrical impulses goes more towards the right side, so there is right axis deviation. Yeah, this is your echocardiograph, how it is shown. Yeah. See, as you can see, the left ventricle should left ventricle should use aorta, but the aorta is more pushed towards the right side, and the right ventricle is giving the aorta, right? See, the defect due to a large VSD. Okay, there is a large VSD. This is supposed to be closed, and there is blood happily going into the aorta from here. Okay, this depicts the picture. Okay, this is left atrium. This is all the way closed chamber, and this is left into left ventricle, and the left ventricle is giving into aorta, and there is a large VSD here. The star is the VSD, and the right side aorta is being pushed towards the right side. It has to be supposed to be on the left side. Well, yeah. Now coming to the differential diagnosis, see, as we discussed phallus physiology, VSD with PS is phallus physiology. Okay, phallus diology. This is called, only two components are there. So this is phallus diology, and TOF with ASD. Only VSD has to be there in TOF. If it is associated with atrial septal defect also, then it is phallus pathology. Okay, 5 things are there. The 5th component is ASD. This is also usually asked question in the exams. Okay, in Viva. And the pulmonary atresia also can present like this, because as we discussed, the physiology is the same. Pulmonary atresia, VSD, if that is there, you can. Eisenmenger syndrome is, as you know, that the right heart is doing more job in case of Eisenmenger's, and here in yeah, sorry, yeah, Hmm. Here we can see that in Eisenmenger's the right heart does more job, okay, than the left heart. Okay, these are all the differential diagnosis. And then complications. So what can happen to the child if untreated, or over the time what can happen to them? How do you want to counsel the parent, or how do you want to, what do you want to see in the child in the follow-up? Okay, it can be cerebral thrombosis. Most commonly, thrombosis is less than 2 years, and brain abscess because deoxygenated blood and poor nutrition, and they are susceptible for a lot of infections. And brain abscess can be there, and which is usually seen more than 2 years. And less than 2 years, there can be thrombosis because there is thick blood with the polycythemia roaming around the body, and in the brain with thick blood flow, it gets obstructed, thrombosed, and they can present with stroke. Okay, and there can be cyanotic spells and depressed IQ. They are not being intellectually not as good because of poor growth, and the infective endocarditis because the any cardiac complication will eventually give to any anatomical defect can give to infective endocarditis. Just mention any complication in the heart disease, you mention infective endocarditis, and you will be right. Okay, yeah, polycythemia and embolic phenomena as we discussed, thick blood flowing. Okay. Okay, coming to the hypoxemic spell. Oh my God, I'm late. Okay. Yeah, we'll jab in. This is the theoretical question actually. Than practical, this is a theory. You can get a question on this on the paper. Yeah, it is also called as the hypercyanotic TET spell, or a cyanotic spell, or hypoxic spell. The mechanism is secondary to the infundibular spasm, which can be triggered. Already narrowed pulmonary infundibular is the initial part of the pulmonary artery is called infundibulum. Okay, it gets spasmed because of some other triggering factors. Those will be those triggering factors are like early morning when the baby is sleeping, and early morning once the baby gets up, the dynamics of the blood flow changes. That extra demand may not meet the narrowed pulmonary stenosis, and again still the infundibulum will spasm. That can trigger, and emotional stress like crying can trigger infundibular spasm. After feeding, there can be infundibular spasm, and after defecation, after straining for defecation, there can be infundibular spasm. That will result in TET spell. Okay, the peak incidence is 2 to 6 months. The mostly it is 2 to 4 months. Okay, yeah. What happens is due to infundibular spasm, there is decrease in systemic vascular resistance with increased right to left flow. When there is systemic vascular resistance is getting low, uh, there will be more blood flowing from the right side of the heart to the left side because of the large VSD that is there. So resulting in diminished pulmonary blood flow. All the blood goes into the level, yeah, from the right ventricle to the left ventricle. Not much goes into the pulmonary artery because it is anyway stenosed, and moreover that there is a spasm. So more blood goes to the right side, left side from the right. So that doesn't allow the blood to go into the pulmonary blood flow. So you will have a lot of cyanosis because lung is the one who is going to oxygenate the blood. Okay, severe spells may lead to limpness, convulsions, CVAs, cerebrovascular accidents, and even if they can produce death. Okay. Now coming to the hemodynamics, what happens is due to increased activity, as we discussed, increased activity, increased respiration, increased venous return, fixed pulmonary blood flow, and increased shunting of right side to left side, and increased cyanosis. All these what happens over activity. The child cries or gets up from the bed, from the sleep. Increased activity that will cause increase in respiration, more respiration after exercise or after feeding. Then that will increases the venous return to the heart. That is more blood to the right heart. That will cause more work, will cause atresia will become more atretic. If there is, you want to push more blood into the narrowed area, it gets blocked obviously. So well, the blood goes to the left side. Okay, this is what I told you. You need to have a lot of 3D imagination for this. Okay, yeah. hypothesis, symptoms. Yeah, then how does the child present? Okay, there will be sudden onset of cyanosis. The child may be normal, but suddenly you may see that the child is turning into blue. The mother says that after feeding, my baby has turned into blue. I can see that. Okay, there will be sudden onset of dyspnea because of less blood going to the pulmonary circulation. There will be dyspnea. The baby wants to take more oxygen in. Okay, alternations in consciousness because of hypoxia. Child can be unresponsive, dyspnic, and irritable. Okay, and there can be decrease in intensity or even disappearance of systolic murmur, as we discussed in the hemodynamics. The systolic murmur, which is supposed usually there, will be disappeared because there is no blood flow to the pulmonary artery. Okay, previously there used to be ejection systolic murmur. Now the murmur is gone. That doesn't mean that there is happily normalized, but the defect has gone very bad. Okay. Okay, now how do you treat it, or how do you abort a spell like that whenever such a thing comes, or with that history somebody has presented to your clinic? How do you approach the child? Is knee chest position or squatting? What happens in knee chest position is it decreases the systemic vascular resistance because the venous return. Okay, the venous pooling will be there. Now, if you squat and sit, there will be less blood going into the heart, so that there will be less load to the heart, so that there will be less blood from right heart to the left heart, so there will be more blood in the pulmonary. Okay, I know that this is not going well, but try to understand this. Okay, decreases systemic venous return and increases systemic vascular resistance at the femoral arteries, because if you squat and sit, there is not much blood flowing in. Okay, and regarding the medications, oxygen has to be given because the baby will be hypoxic, and that is why the baby wants to respire more and maybe present with the dyspnea. And we can give morphine sulfate because it suppresses the respiratory center, because as we discussed in the pathophysiology, increased respiration causes more deepening of the worsening of the condition. So you want to suppress the respiratory center, not suppressing, not going to stop it, but you decrease the respiratory drive, so that the child can, you supplement oxygen, decrease the drive, so that the child can be aborted from the spell. Okay, and acidosis if present, because there's less blood flowing, there will be a lot of acid in the circulation, and that will present that can be dealt with bicarbonates. Okay, yeah, this is the typical squatting. The child knows, actually an experienced child knows that if I get such a dyspneic or chest tightness, the feeling, if I squat I can feel better. Okay, this is how the child will suddenly cry and goes to this posture. Okay, this is the thing. And these are the other equivalents. Okay, how the child can go into this is knee chest position. The child can go and sit in a chair, like legs pulled, and you can just cross the legs over. Okay, these are all other ways by which the child will evolve in making this. Yeah, how do you follow up case? Okay, now the child has presented, you have aborted the episode with morphine, oxygen, bicarbonate, whatever you have given, everything in here, but on follow up, what you are going to do? Okay, is because you want to prevent such episodes. So you give a vasoconstrictor like phenylephrine 0.02 mg per kg IV, and propranolol can be advised uh, as an oral medication also for a long term. And if that is not responding much, you can give ketamine. You can sedate the child, and that increases systemic vascular resistance, and the child will be happily lying down, and the hemodynamics will get back into the normal. Okay, if everything is not going according to plan, you have to give ketamine. And during propranolol can be given orally, and you can send the child home and educate the mother and the parents regarding such episodes. Okay, then what? These are the complications as we discussed, actually: stroke, brain abscess, and seizures. This is the picture I want to show you. This is the infarct. Okay, this is the large infarct. Okay, because of this cerebral thrombosis in a case of TOF. Okay, and this is a well encapsulated brain abscess. Okay, as a complication of TOF. Okay, there is one abscess, this one is another abscess. and there is midline shift. Okay, that is engulfed one ventricle and it is pushing to crossing over the midline and going to the other side. These are the complications. Just I want to show the images. Yeah, now how to manage a case of TOF? Okay, you know this, you have dealt with spells. Now how, what is the treatment? You can't do the symptomatic management, right? You need to tell them the pakka thing. Okay, that is management. Management is both medical and surgical. Medical, as we discussed, oral propranolol can be given to prevent spells. Iron deficiency anemia, because if it's anemia, the child can fail, the heart can fail, so you don't want anemia. You know that the bone marrow will be producing more this thing, so you want to give more supplementation, give more iron, and good dental hygiene to prevent endocarditis. And hematocrit has to be maintained less than 65, because more hematocrit, more thick blood, more chance of thrombosis or embolic phenomena, and that can lodge in brain, heart, or other narrowed arteries. Okay. Yeah, now coming to the surgical management. See, it is only palliative. Medical management is only palliative. We know that this is congenital, this is anatomical defect. So any anatomical defect has to be dealt with surgery. Okay, you can't medically change the anatomy. Okay, surgical management, where you'll go for shunt procedures. With the neonate with TOF and pulmonary atresia, it is the neonates, very small children, we can go for shunt surgeries. And infants with hypoplastic pulmonary annulus. The annulus, I mean, the annulus is the ring around the pulmonary artery at the origin of the pulmonary artery. If it is very hypoplastic and it is collapsing with every beat, so you may have to go for a procedure because it is not going to sustain long. And hypoplastic arteries, you have to go for surgery. And severe cyanosis in a child younger than 3 months, you may have to go immediately. Sorry. And infants younger than 3 to 4 months who have medically unmanageable spells, you can't manage. You give propranolol, you give ketamine, you are giving phenylephrine, but you are not getting the response. So you may have to go for shunt surgeries. Otherwise, if the child is manageable, we'll push the child to the later age, 1 year, at the end of 1 year or 2 years. We can push if the child is managing. Okay, for the ease of anesthesia and also on table death risk. Okay, we can't take the child with lesser age, the risk increases with anesthesia and also suppression. Okay, just remember the few names for shunt procedures. What you know, Blalock Tossing operation. This is very popular, where the anastomosis of the subclavian artery to the pulmonary artery. You know that pulmonary artery is stenosis, so you're pulling another artery, subclavian artery, and giving the blood to the lung. Okay, because there is this thing, and this is performed in infants older than 3 months of age. And Gore-Tex interposition, where the subclavian artery and ipsilateral pulmonary artery, yes, you're just bypassing the obstruction in a different way. That's all. Okay, the right side subclavian gives to the right side. Okay, the same thing. Okay, and water stun, it is ascending aorta will be attached to the right pulmonary artery. Okay, and POTS, where descending aorta is attached to the left pulmonary artery. These two are absolute now, and whatever shunt surgeries, Tosings and Gore-Tex, these are being used now, but these are not a definitive management. This is just to palliate, just to buy some time for a corrective surgery. Okay, the corrective surgeries are, as you need to correct all the defects. It is the correction of the overriding of aorta. The aorta has shifted to the right side, so you put it in the left side, correct it. And VSD, there is a large VSD, and VSD has to be closed. And infundibular, the origin of the pulmonary artery, if at all it is hypoplastic or not doing well, you need to resuscitate it, and you need to anastomose it. And stenotic valvotomy, if there is any pulmonary arterial stenosis, pulmonary artery valvular stenosis, you need to remove the valves, okay, and replace it. Okay, these are the corrective and definitive surgeries for TOF. Okay, just remember there is a correction for everything. Overriding aorta, corrective overriding. VSD is the close the VSD. There is infundibular, there is PS. You remove the atretic part and correct the valve. Okay, whatever is there, this thing. And right ventricle, which is hypertrophied, will obviously with the normal circulation will get back to the normal. Okay, and now how is the prognosis to the child? Without surgery, 1/3 will die by 1 year, and half by 3 years, and most of them by 10 years. They can't not many can cross 10 years of age. Okay, this is without surgery, without any corrective surgery or a shunt surgery. And with surgery, the risk of death is 5%, but at 90%, the child will do well and can um, be normally lead the life normally after a good corrective surgery. Okay, this is the prognosis regarding this. Without surgery, it is very grim, and yeah, with surgery, the hopes are high. This ends our discussion. Thank you very much for your attention. Okay, any questions? Yeah, somebody can. Hello, guys. Any questions? Hello. Hello. Am I audible?
No, sir.
Okay, you answered that. I must be audible. No doubts. You meant no doubts. Hello. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Shall we wind that off, or is there anything you would like to know? Hello. Yeah. You are
No,
present
sir.
all the time. Shall we wind off? Hello. Oh God. Everybody was left or what? Hello.
No doubt, sir.
Okay, thank you, Supriya.
Doubts.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Stay safe. The numbers are increasing. Kindly be safe. Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.